Aaron James, welcome to A Man in His Face. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this, really.
Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas right now.
Is it hot in Hot Springs Village today? It's hot as hell here.
It's getting there. Of course, we had a bunch of rain yesterday, but yeah, it's in the 80s, mid 80s. So yeah, it's definitely on its way for sure.
So we had the pleasure of meeting on a My Face panel, which was
hmm
great a couple of weeks
Yep.
ago. Both of us had acquired facial differences from two separate accidents.
Mhm.
Can you take us back to the day of your accident and what do you remember about it and how did your life change in that moment?
Okay. It was June the 10th of 2021. I was a lineman that built power lines. Been doing that for 12 years. August of '08 is when I started that. And we were working in Oklahoma, just south of Tulsa, probably about I think it was like 4 hours from my house. So we would usually go up there for a couple of weeks and then come home for a few days. But it was a hot day, and the pole we were having to change out an old pole. So the way we did that, if we could, we would set a new pole right beside the old one, and then just move everything over. So the way we were doing it, it was me and another lineman, and it was so hot that I would go up and work for a little while, and then I'd come down, and then the other lineman would go up and work. We'd just kind of swap off because we'd usually, have rubber sleeves on and rubber gloves, and man, it just amplifies the heat. So we would swap out. Now, I don't remember any of the accident. So what they told me was I went up, we were doing the very last thing. This was like 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon. And we were doing the very last thing. And then we were gonna call it a day. And so I go up. It's something I had done 1,000 times before. I mean, it was simple work, no big deal. Well, I guess I had forgot to bring some of the material that I needed. I forgot to bring it up with me. So, and I had the neutral, the ground wire was in the bucket with me because that's what I was hanging was the neutral. So I turned around to holler at the guys on the ground to tell them what I forgot so they could go ahead and get it and have it ready for me. And they said when I turned back around that my face made contact with the live wire, the phase at the top. And because the neutral wire was in my bucket and I was touching it, I mean, it gave it a path to go through. If I hadn't have been touching that neutral, nothing would have happened because I was inside a insulated bucket. But since I had that neutral in there with me, it it entered my face on the left side. Let's see, it went down my arm, auto amputated my thumb. It came out the back of my head. It came out two places on my right shoulder and it came out the bottom of my feet. And it was around 7,500 volts, I guess. 7,000 volts. So which, like I said, I don't remember anything. The first thing I remember is I was kind of starting to wake up and I could hear the beeps, in the hospital, the machines and everything. And I was like, okay, something's happened. First thing I thought, well, I've been in a vehicle accident. And so I kind of opened my eye and I noticed that I couldn't open this one or see something. I'm like, well, they got it wrapped or something. And then I looked down and I noticed that my arm was gone. And I was left-handed, so I was like, great, this is my good arm, of all the ones to get taken off, it's got to be my good one. And luckily, my wife was there, and she saw me wake up, and she come rushing over there, and she said, hey, you were in an accident at work. She started explaining to me what it was, and then she told me that I had been in a coma for 6 weeks and that now I was in Dallas, Texas at a hospital. And I'm like, what in the world? Last thing I remember, I went to work and I wake up 6 weeks later in a whole nother state, and I was like, man. And that still kind of bothers me to this day because of that time gap there, that 6 weeks. It's just, I don't know, it's weird. But they had to put me in a medically induced coma because my kidneys had shut down. My arm was essentially rotten. They said that Megan, my wife, and Allie, they said when you come onto the floor at the ICU in Tulsa, where I was at, Hillcrest, that you could smell my arm across the whole floor because it was just dying. They had like cans of coffee grounds in my room, and Megan said they'd have to put toothpaste inside their mask. This was 2021, so COVID was still kind of hanging out, and they still kind of had their kind of strict visitation rules and stuff going on. So it got to the point, and they had to remove some of my tongue because I had burned it. Well, then they start after a few days, because electrical burns burn you from the inside out. And so, everything on the inside, I looked a lot better on the outside than I did on the inside. Because then they started removing some of the dead tissue. And before it was over, I mean, they had removed pretty much my whole face on the left side. My nose was gone. My mouth was gone. They had to remove teeth because my gums had burned. And then it got to a point, my arm was pretty much poisoning my blood. But my blood work was so bad that the doctors didn't want to do surgery because they were afraid I was going to die on the table. Well, if it wasn't for my wife, and I talked to a couple of those doctors, the one that amputated my arm, and he said 100% the only reason you're still alive is because of your wife. And that's because they had come to a point, because like I said, my kidneys had shut down. I'd had a couple of strokes, had some swelling on the brain. I had become non-responsive. My pupils were fixed. I mean, it wasn't looking too good, and that's what they were kind of pushing, not necessarily pushing her, but they were, telling her like, hey, this, he may not ever come out of this. He may not ever walk. He may not ever talk. I mean, do you really want him to live like this? And she was like, as long as he's fighting, she said, I'm going to fight. So she said, take the arm off. The doctor said, well, he's probably going to die. And she said, well, he's going to die if you don't take the arm. So at least give him a chance. So they took me back, uh, and I couldn't imagine. I always say Megan, she went through more of it than I did because she was there through the worst part of it, having to make these decisions. And so they said a little while later, however long, I don't know how long it took, the doctor come out and said, man, he made it perfect. He said, we took the arm off. He said, I would have never took a patient back there with his blood work the way it was. Never. But he said he made it perfect. No problems at all. So, I think that was kind of the first little stepping point, it's like, okay, we can get through this, or that's what they were saying. I still didn't have a clue anything had even happened. But then they had got to a point where I was needing a higher tier of care because they had done all they can do. So they decided to send me to Parkland in Dallas, Texas. And so they airlifted me down there. That's where they started kind of waking me up. They finally, that's when I woke up. And then, of course, like I said, my face was pretty much gone. They had it all wrapped up, but it was just pretty much bone is all it was that was showing. So they went in, they took a muscle out of my back, and they placed it on my face just to have something there, for whatever. And so it healed up and everything. Of course, I still didn't have a nose, and my mouth was just like a little hole about the size of a quarter. So I had a feeding tube to eat, trach to help breathe. And about a week after I woke up, I noticed this eye was starting to get blurry. And I said something to my wife, and I was like, it seems like things are getting blurry, which they've been putting a lot of eye drops and stuff. And she said, well, it may just be the eye drops and stuff. So we kind of kept on. And then one day I woke up, I couldn't see anything but light. I mean, I could put my hand right here and I couldn't see it. And what had happened, I formed a cataract on this eye. And you can actually look it up. We looked it up on Google, and it said that electrical trauma to the face or something will cause a cataract on your eye. So here's another thing we had to kind of work through because, I had been in a coma for 6 weeks. I had lost all my muscle in my legs. I couldn't even sit up in bed. I went from weighing 250 pounds to 170 in 6 weeks. So, and now I can't see at all. So we got out of the woods and they moved me across the street to Zale Lipshy. It's an inpatient rehab. So I had to learn how to walk again. Blind. I still couldn't see nothing. So, and man, I'm going to tell you something. Trying to learn how to walk it's crazy because you have to actually think in your head, okay, step with my left, step with my, it's not like it's an involuntary movement, it's just, we walk and we don't even think about it. But when you haven't done it in so long and you're trying to get those muscles going again and man, and then plus I can't see anything. So I got a nurse in front of me and a nurse behind me, just kind of guiding me. And then, so it took we finally got the cataract cut out about 2 weeks later, but it took probably 6 months for me to actually get to where I could walk again. I mean, it was so weird, such a weird feeling to not be able to walk. And so I was there for a couple months, and then we got home in December of 21. I was still in a wheelchair whenever we got home. But, I went to PT 3 days a week, and, we just kept on, kept on. People, that's where your family and support groups, and, they just really pushed and pushed and pushed. And, now here I'm walking. Now I'm not running or, jumping or anything like I used to, but I think the strokes that I had kind of messed that up. But yeah, I mean and I guess right before I come home, it's when we got in touch with the doctors at NYU for a possible face transplant, and it was the doctor, Dr. Rodriguez, and it's weird because I knew who he was because I had seen his other face transplants on YouTube not too long before I had my accident. So it's kind of weird that that's who we got in touch with. And yeah, and then I guess June of 22, we flew to New York. First time in New York City. Never been there before. We didn't know what to expect because, all you hear, everybody's rude, don't want to talk to you. But I mean, actually, we've made some friends up there that we'll have for the rest of our lives. I mean, they were great. But yeah, we started going through the testing to see if I was a candidate, and everything come back good. And he wanted me to get a little stronger because I was still kind of weak as far as walking and stuff because he knew the surgery was going to knock me back down a little. So finally, in February of 23, they listed me for a face transplant. And they said, well, it could take, 6 months to a year, depending, you just got to wait until the right match comes along. And then 3 months later is when I got the call for a donor. And man, I'm going to tell you something. When you're on a donor list, every time that phone rings, you're just like, this is it. This is it. But he'd asked me, we had a little conversation before. He said, well, he said, I want to ask you something because they had removed my left eye. He said, what do you think about a possible whole eye transplant as well? He said, it's never been done before, but we're trying to, this is kind of a good opportunity to see if we can do it, And of course, I never hesitated, I was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, I don't have anything to lose by doing it. So, I mean, of course, obviously, I'd love to have got my sight back. But, if you look at the bigger picture, it's more like, this is the start. This is opening up a whole new branch of medical. I mean, we're breaking into something big here. I mean, I may never see it in my lifetime, but now we're getting into stuff that, and everybody knows somebody that's got some kind of visual impairment or, born that way or whatever. So yeah, I was kind of thinking, man, if it don't work on me, they're going to learn a lot from it, whether it works or not. So yeah, I mean, shoot, yeah, I'll try it, shoot. I mean, I don't have to do anything but lay there, I mean, they're the ones doing all the work. So yeah, I said, let's do it. And they're like, well, it's probably not gonna, the way we're thinking, it's probably not gonna survive the transplant because if it goes very long without a blood supply, it's going to start dying. I mean, it's like, at first they said, if it goes just a minute or two without blood flow, it's going to start dying. I was like, okay, well, let's try it anyway. So May, it was Memorial Day weekend of 23, we got the call. And so we flew up there. The next day, he called us. We were in bed, fixing to go to sleep. And he called. And of course, both our hearts just sunk, And he's like, I think we got one. He said, I think we got a donor. I think we got a good match. He said, we're going to run some more tests. But if so, if everything's good, he said, I need you up here tomorrow. I was like, oh, goodness. Okay, okay. So, of course, we didn't sleep at all that night. Got up, waited around the phone. We had stuff packed and we got a call. He said, everything's good. He said, y'all go ahead and come on up. So, man, we hurried up and got up there that evening. And 7 o'clock the next morning, they come and got me. And it was a 1 hour surgery, which was actually the fastest one that they've done. I was actually only in the hospital a month. I was the quickest to discharge after a face transplant and the world's first eye transplant. It's been almost 2 years now. Next month will be 2 years, and the eye's still alive. Good blood flow. I mean, they never expected it to make it this far. So yeah, I think there's been a lot. My family's been blessed, since the accident, and I think there's a lot more good that's going to come out of this, and not just for me. I mean, we got some more research and we got something else to strive for now, with the eyes, So yeah, I'm glad to have been a part of it, in a way, I guess. So yeah, that was pretty much. And I'm sure I've left out some stuff. There was a lot that happened during that 2 or 3 years there. That first couple years from the accident were crazy busy, but
Yeah,
but
so
yeah.
I haven't been silenced that long in my life, I think, or especially for the last few years. Um, and I think your story deserves that, just the thoroughness that you explained it, and just for no interruption and no, because
Yeah.
that's, I mean, wow. To start with, that's unbelievable. Obviously, I have so many questions. I'll go into the mental aspect of it in a second. Regarding the surgeries, I have two questions. What was the determination for them, quote unquote, saying the right match? And what happened if the transplant didn't survive? Would they have to take it off again, and you'd go back to how you looked after the accident? How would that have worked?
As far as the match goes, when I went up there the first time, they run every single test you can imagine on me that week. I'm talking from Monday morning at 8 o'clock until Friday evening. I was nonstop testing every single day, and they check everything. There's a system that they go by, and I'm not 100% on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved, but it's mainly like, of course, blood type. And then there's a lot of antigens and stuff that they look at that needs to match. And then they'll do skin color. And, if everything on the inside is good, then they'll go skin color and stuff like that. So, and as far as the eye goes, I mean, if it wouldn't have survived, then they would have just removed it, and I would have been, I'd still be like this. Now the face, yeah, there's always a chance that it can reject because, I have to take immunosuppressant meds for the rest of my life because I have to keep my white count low because if my white count gets up too high, it's going to see this face as a foreign object, and it's going to start attacking the face. So we have to keep our immune system down so it don't attack the face. Now, the thing with that is any little cold or sickness, or if you're around a bunch of people, you'll probably get a cold or something. I just had when we went to, when we come to DC, when we got home, I got a big head cold, of course, flying on a plane, with all the people and stuff. But it's just something now that I can't be out in the sun for like a long period of time because the sunburn will kick off a rejection. There's a lot of, you've got to change things up, but I mean, it's not hard stuff. When you,
Can you smell?
yes, that was the first thing. Because that was one thing before, after the accident, after they put the muscle over my face. And of course, I didn't have a nose, so I couldn't taste anything. I couldn't smell, so I couldn't taste. Because my wife, she would puree like soups and stuff. And we'd get like a big bowl of, she'd cook a big pot of soup that would last for 2 or 3 days, and then puree it up. But I couldn't taste it. So what she would do, she would put like a bunch of hot sauce and sour cream in it just to give it some kind of a bite, something that I could feel, I guess. So that's how I ate for, a year and a half. But after the transplant, after the surgery, when I woke up in the recovery room, the first thing I did, I just took a deep breath through my nose, and man, I could smell. Of course, it was a hospital room, so I mean, it really wasn't nothing spectacular, but yeah, I could smell all the plastic stuff in the room, and I was like, oh man, this is good, It's kind of little stuff, that you don't really think about, but yeah, it was nice. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
like yeah, that's amazing. I think a lot of people when they first hear of a face transplant or such an accident, I think they have questions like that. Can you see? Can you
yeah.
hear? Can you smell? Do you have nerve receptors on the skin on your face? Can you feel your skin?
I can now. Now it took. I think they say, or what I was told was nerves grow like 1 millimeter a day. So it took a while. It took a few months to get to where I could feel. And what it started out as, it felt like I was getting stung by like a bunch of bees or something. It was just all over the side of my face. And then, you get to where, hey, I can feel that, and now I can pretty much, I still have a little issue feeling on my lips. I think that's really the only place that I really can't feel because we'll do a sensitivity test or something, and I'll close my eye and they'll touch and then I'll try to pick where they touch. But yeah, I mean, the nerves have grown in. I mean, it's me. The only one I've got that's still kind of weird is when I rub across here, I feel it down here. That's where I feel it. So
Interesting.
it's kind of weird how that stuff works, yeah. Because as the nerves were growing, it was like I could touch here and I'd feel it over here. I mean, it was just like, oh man, it was weird feeling. But now everything's pretty much for the most part just like a regular. I feel it just like I did my other one. It might be just a little not as sharp of a feeling, but I can feel everywhere now. It's
It's
weird.
amazing, isn't it? It's crazy. I mean, not crazy as in crazy, but just you think that. I mean, I know I'm not downplaying any of face transplants or scarring, but like when I had spaghetti bolognese last night, you get a bit of sauce on your top lip, and I can't feel that. So it's,
Huh?
I'm unless I'm told by my wife or friend that I've got
Yep,
sauce around my face, then I'm walking
yep.
around,
I
looking like
know.
a sucker.
Yeah, I've got the same thing when I eat, and if something kind of gets on my lip, I'm the same way. I can't really feel it. So Megan will, which I've got to where if we go out somewhere, if I take a bite, I'll grab a napkin real quick, and just kind of rub, make sure I got everything. Which I can't open my mouth like normal, I guess, because of all the scar tissue that come in after the accident, because I couldn't open my mouth at all for a year and a half. So it built up a lot of scar tissue in this jaw. So I can only, if I open my mouth as far as I can only get like 2 fingers, like, vertical. That's as far as I can open, which they say a normal bite is like 3 fingers. So, I mean, it's not, I can still eat whatever I want. I just gotta, cut it up or stuff like that. So I mean, it's not really think that. I can't eat a hamburger or something. I kind of gotta eat it like a layer at a time sometimes, but
Mhm.
it's no big deal. I'm used to it now. So
Instinctively, I was thinking, should I try and fit 3 fingers in my mouth? But I was like, that's not, that is not a good look. That is not a good look. No, that's incredible. And I know you mentioned Megan, who I also got to meet.
yes.
You mentioned when you were in a coma for 6 weeks. I was out myself for a brief period, but not as long as 6 weeks, and it was a very weird feeling. It's like I get asked as well, like, did you see anything, or did you sleep well, or did you any memories? And I mean, I was in a lot of pain. I remember that, and I was more so worried about where my parents were because I was a young child. What do you remember from, if you remember anything from being in a coma for 6 weeks? Do you remember Megan
No,
talking to you?
no, I don't remember. I don't remember anything on the outside. All I can remember, and to this day, it kind of freaks me out a little. And I didn't know that this was a thing for people that are in induced comas, but I had the worst nightmares while I was in a induced coma. I'm talking to the point to where if I think about them today, it's like a memory. It was like it actually happened. It was so real and so vivid. Just, and they were not good. They were not good dreams at all. And then I got to looking it up, and that's kind of a common thing for people that's been in a induced coma. I don't know what the deal is, but man, that was terrible.
You have the facial hair? Is that yours or is that the donors?
No, this is the donors.
Nice.
I'm growing it, but it's we joke around because I had a beard before. It wasn't this dark, but when we were talking to Dr. Rodriguez during the testing and stuff, and we are like, yeah, the only requirement, I want to have a beard. That was kind of, which, it wouldn't have mattered either way. We were just joking about it. And the day after surgery, I already had stubble growing in. It instantly was growing as soon as the surgery was done. So yeah, I was shaving like a week after surgery. I was having one of the nurses coming in shaving me. I was like, man, this is crazy how this works. You don't understand really how our human bodies, what they can endure, what they can go through. You can just take something from somebody, and that's not just a face, but like livers and kidneys and hearts, and I guess we don't realize how much we actually need each other, in the long run, I guess, until you go through something like this. And that's something that every day I think about the donor, and the family, because here I am, I'm celebrating, something good that happened to me with a transplant. But then you got to think there's a family that is mourning the loss of a son or a brother a husband, to get me this, and so you kind of mix feelings about it because you know that on the other side there's a family that's going through probably one of the worst things they've ever gone through. So you want to be happy, but you want to think about them, and you want to thank them. And I call it a gift. They gave me a gift. Total stranger, didn't know me from anybody, and they gave me this gift from their family to, I'd say, to kind of take on and take care of, and it kind of makes me want to do all I can so they don't regret making that decision, so they know that they did the right thing. And it wasn't just me. I mean, he saved, I think it was like 4 or 5 people's lives, with liver and pancreas and just all his organs. It's something that don't get talked about much, but the donors are, that's a real big deal, and something that I honestly never thought about. And I hate to admit it, but it never really crossed my mind until I had to go through this. And yeah, I think about them every day, and they're almost like another family, I guess, to live for, so I put that
Have
in my. No,
no, you
I
you go
put
ahead.
I
Sorry.
put no, that's fine. That's just something I kind of put into my everyday life now. You're not just doing this for Megan or Allie or my sister. Now you've got this kind of extended family now that you really need to live for and let them know that, hey, you take their decision seriously and you're not just going to play it off, and so they'll know that they did the right thing. It's kind of.
Organ donation is a topic which doesn't get discussed enough. And in the UK, I believe that now you are a mandatory organ donor until you voluntarily take yourself off the register. I have an organ donation card, and it's in my wallet. I'll have to go look at it, but I believe that's the case. I might be wrong, and I might have to clarify that on a later time. But I believe you are an organ donor until otherwise notified. And it doesn't get spoken about enough. So my question
Wow.
for you is, have you or will you get the opportunity to learn more about the donor or meet the family? Is that something that you want to explore?
Yeah, I want to. I mean, I would love to be able to meet them, and I think before the surgery, the doctors had Megan write a letter to, we didn't know who the donor was going to be at the time. They just, wanted her to write a letter that they would give to the family, kind of describing me and us and, what this means to us. And, uh, but, I mean, we haven't heard anything yet, which, I understand. I mean, I'm not, because, I couldn't imagine, losing someone and then later, meeting somebody and, here's their face. I mean, it's different, I would think, if it was an organ that's on the inside, that you can't physically see. But, when you see, your son or whatever, that you had lost 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, that can't be easy for anybody. And I understand, but yeah, I would love to meet them and, just thank them. And I mean, that'd be great. But we'll see, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
The facial hair thing's crazy because I was someone who got
Oh,
robbed of a decent beard. Yours looks fantastic. Like I can't grow facial hair on at the bottom of it, so it's I got robbed of a great beard. I
well,
follicularly challenged on top and now on the side as
yeah,
well. It's like I can't just grow one side of the face because
yeah,
maybe I don't know, maybe I
yeah.
could.
Well, I've seen a lot worse than just one side. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it comes in now. It's not as It's not as thick as what my other one was, but yeah, I mean it's fine. I mean but it's so crazy, and it's something that they told me even before they found a donor. They were like, if it comes down to it, we could actually use a female face. And then, once it's connected to your body, you're going to start feeding it testosterone. And it'll start, they said it would be no different than somebody that was, transitioning or whatever. But yeah, they said as soon as you started feeding it testosterone, that it would start growing facial hair just like anything, and I didn't even think about that later. I thought, man, that just blows my mind, stuff that they can do, and it's only going to get better. The face transplant still kind of, I mean, I think I was in the United States. I think I was like number 18 or 19, and then in the world, I think I was somewhere around 50. So I mean, there hasn't been just a whole lot. I mean, it's still pretty new, but they keep doing it. It's just going to keep getting better and better. Before you know it, it'll probably be an outpatient deal for too long. You just go in, get it done, and go home. It seems like everything else is turning into that way. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting, to see this side of things that it took me 45 years to, I guess, have my eyes open, I guess, to another whole side of humanity, I guess, really. A side that I've never seen, a side I've never thought about. So, I mean, it's been good, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really know how else to say it, I mean, yeah, this has been the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life so far. But I mean, the good things that have come out of this has just been unbelievable. I mean, it's just so many blessings. It's just we can't even explain it. Me and Megan we'll just look at each other one time. How in the world did we get this? Get this to go the way that it's went. I mean, it's it still blows my mind. It's almost like this was meant to happen. I mean, I don't know, if you believe in predestined stuff or whatever, but man, I'm telling you, now you'd have a hard time convincing me that, we're not on a selected path because every single thing that was supposed to happen, that we needed to happen, happened. I mean, no question, nothing. I mean, what we needed happened. It's just, I don't know. It's just, to this day, it just blows my mind. I'll look at stuff on YouTube just to try just to figure it out, what, and it's just, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, that is crazy. I don't think there's actually a response that I can say to. Um, it's almost. I think I say this to my wife as well. I was I wasn't an arrogant teenager. Like you, I don't think arrogance is the right word. When you live your life thinking, "Oh, nothing's going to happen to me." You see things that
Yeah.
happen to other people, and oh, so like a sickness or an injury, that's not going to happen to me. Until you go through something like you've been through, or that I went through when I was younger, it really recalibrates what's important, what's meaningful, and what actually matters in
Yep.
life. And you don't wish that people would understand what you've gone through, or you don't
Right.
wish
Right.
harm upon anyone. But
Mhm.
sometimes you see people and you're like, they're moaning about little things in life, and they might have a point and they might be correct, but it's not until they've experienced a true tragedy or something personal that they think all of that stuff that I was thinking previously doesn't really matter, like the
Mhm.
comments or the staring, or not,
Yep.
it sucks and I hate it, but it doesn't matter. Like, I'm lucky to be alive.
Exactly. And me and Megan, we've been married for 22 years, and the accident was almost 4 years ago. And since the accident, almost 4 years, I don't think we have gotten into a fight since. Because, like you said, you see what's really important. All the stuff we used to bicker about, beforehand. I mean, that don't mean nothing anymore. I mean, that's just little stuff that you're like, man, why did we even argue about that? Or anything. I mean, it's just, yeah, I could have died. I was just one decision away from not being here anymore, and I had a 16-year-old daughter at the time. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, you find out what's important, and it's been it's been good. It's been good to finally see that.
My generation, they all, appearance is a big thing, right? It's clothes got to look good. I got to be in good shape, or my hair's got to look a certain way and well groomed, and especially with appearance and even work. Like I have friends who or acquaintances who obsess over I have to do it to prove to someone else. Like I have to
Right.
prove to this person that I'm good, I'm worthy enough. But when you've been through an event like we just spoke about, and it makes you realize the things that really matter in life,
Mhm.
every day you wake up and you're just like, I'm still alive. I was out
Yep.
for nearly, when I say out,
Hmm.
borderline dead for nearly 3 minutes, and in your case, you're in a coma for 6 weeks and battling those challenges. And every day you wake up and you get to go for a walk outside in the sunshine and feel the warmth on your skin and the breeze, and
Yep.
little and just the beauty of the mountains, the ocean, the walks on the beach, being with family and friends and
Yep.
your wife and walking the dog. It's hard to explain to folks
I
who've
know.
never experienced a real, not in a
It is.
selfish way,
Right.
personal tragedy event in their life.
Yeah, because, when I was growing up, I grew up in a little small town, couple thousand people, small high school. As far as sports goes, all we had at the time was pretty much baseball and basketball, and that was it. So I played basketball. I mean, I'm 6'4", and we had a good team. I was a good player, and I went to college on a basketball scholarship, and which I kind of realized pretty quick that college wasn't my thing, so it didn't last very long. But then I joined the military. Uh, I joined the National Guard, Army National Guard, there at the house, and I did that for 10 years and 3 deployments and to Iraq and Egypt and Kuwait. And, I was always just kind of a active, person. And then, something like this, and I've always worked since I got out of school. I mean, I've always had a job. I've always worked. I've tried to put that. I guess I prioritized work, in front of everything because unfortunately, you got bills you got to pay and all this stuff. So you kind of get your mind set to money first, and family second. A lot of times, and I think that's where we had kind of got in a rut, I guess, where I would always work off because that's where the money was at. I went where the money was, and I didn't realize, I guess, at home, a wife and a daughter. Daughter was growing up, and I was missing all this school stuff that she had, the basketball and the volleyball and stuff like that. And it took until my accident, to be like, man, so damn, I mean, we're only here once, I mean, you got to figure out what you're really here for, I guess. And so, after my accident, she was 16, so she was like 10th grade, I guess, something like that, 10th, 11th. So I finally, of course, through all this, I was able to walk her out on the football field for homecoming, and I was able to go to her high school graduation, and I got to see her the last of her volleyball games and stuff, and I'm so glad that I at least got that, because I mean I missed out on everything thinking that was what my wife and daughter needed. I thought they just needed money, material things, but really I just needed to be here. So I guess somebody kind of let me know, said, hey, we're fixing to slow you down for a little bit so you can figure out what's really important around here. So, and that's what it did, and it really showed me that this is where the priorities are, is right here with your family and friends and neighbors. I mean, this is so. It's been a good learning. It's been a good lesson. I've listened to this one.
You said it. You said it. It's good to prioritize work in certain
Right, right.
circumstances, but there's just so much more to life than worrying about that. So I'm going to revert back a bit. When you first
Okay.
saw your face after the accident, what was your initial emotion, and how did you begin to process that?
Well, at first, honestly, of course, I was on some pretty good meds, so a lot of things didn't really occur to me. And then one day I was like, I hadn't even seen my face yet. And this is right after they took the muscle out of my back and put on my face. And I told Megan, we were sitting in the hospital, which I couldn't really talk that well, so I had to do a lot of writing. They had me like a little dry erase board that I would write on. And I said, I want to see my face, take a picture of my face. And she didn't want to do it at first. She was like, are you sure? I said, yeah, I want to see what's going on. I need to process all this. And I had to kind of ask her 2 or 3 times because she was kind of uncertain about it. And so she took a picture and she spun it around. And I was just like, my goodness, because like it didn't feel as bad as what I seen on this picture. Because now I'm sitting here looking, I've got this muscle wrapped across my face. It's swelled up to about right here. And when the plastic surgeon team comes in, they're like, oh man, that looks perfect. That looks so good. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to look all right. And then she shows me this picture, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I'm just like swelled out to here, and I've got drain tubes coming out of the side of my face, and I just like, oh my gosh, okay, this is a lot more serious than what I thought, because nobody was really giving me very many details. Like I guess they were trying to, protect me a little bit from the mental part of it, but it was good. I'm glad, that I got to see it because it just kind of prepared me, I guess, for the road that we had. I knew when I seen that picture, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a long road that we got ahead. And I even not too long after that, because unfortunately, you see this a lot, but you see people that get into accidents like this, and the spouse ends up leaving them, and so I'm like, I'm gonna cut this off at the head right here. And I told Megan, I said, look, I said, we're fixing to have a long road ahead of us. I said, I totally understand. I get it. If you want to leave, I understand. I mean, obviously I didn't want her to, but I'm like, look, it is what it is. This happens. You see it all the freaking time on the news and stuff. She almost got mad at me. She never even hesitated. She said, no. She said, I'm here to the end. And, with her saying that, it just kind of took a big weight off my shoulders, I guess. Cause then I knew right then, I was like, yeah, we're going to be okay. There's nothing that's going to stop us now, cause, I got family, I got, everybody's here. I didn't lose anything through this deal. I gained more than I lost through this accident, really. So yeah, when she said that, that just kind of validated, okay, it's time to go to work now. So because I got everybody on my side. So yeah,
I
it
love
was
that. I love that.
yeah, yeah,
It's not when you're younger and you see all these quotes saying, "Oh, the most important life decision you'll make is choosing your spouse to choose wisely." And when I was younger or a teenager, I was like, "Oh, like what do you mean? Like surely it's like where you live or where you work or." But
yep,
after meeting my now wife and going through different stages in life, it's so true. And Megan's a champion because,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
no
sad.
doubt.
It is so sad because you see, and not just movies, because obviously movies are movies, but like, and TV shows are
You're right.
dramatized, but it's a real thing. Like one
Mm-hmm.
person in a relationship goes through a physical or mental health battle. Some people are like too easy just to call it quits, and to have an incredibly strong woman by your side or an incredibly strong man by your side when you're going through things like that, then that just makes the recovery. I mean, it's a tough recovery. It's a tough process to overcome, but it
Yep.
makes it that much easier when you have a supportive spouse who's
Yep.
never going to, who's not going to leave your side.
That's right. Yep. She was there at the hospital every single day. Now my daughter, she moved. Of course, she still had to finish school and stuff, so she moved in with my mom while I was in Texas at the hospital. But yeah, she was there every single day until we come home. And I mean that was huge.